Good morning, boys and girls. This is your last day of your packet. Happy trails. We are going to do questions 8, 9, and 10. If you have not already read the story again, go ahead and do that now before we start so you're familiar with the story. We are going to start with question 8. What advice does Maria's mom give her before going to camp? So your keyword is advice and Maria's mom. You're going to use the question to write your answer. What advice does Maria's mom give her before going to camp? So you can start by saying, before going to camp, Maria's mom, and then says or tells her or suggests, whatever you want to say, and then finish the thought. Pause the video here, find the evidence in the text and underline it, then write out your answer and push play and we'll discuss it together. I found my answer in paragraph 17. It said, in all seriousness, Maria, popularity is not important, her mother said, looking her straight in the eyes. Finding the people who like you for you, that's what matters. So I'm going to go back to question 8. What advice does Maria's mom give her before going to camp? And then I took my evidence and I paraphrased it. That means I put it into my own words. Before going to camp, Maria's mom tells her that what matters most is to find friends that like her for her. Now, if you wanted to quote it, you could have also said that. You could say, in paragraph 17, her mother said, and then you could put quotation marks around it and say exactly what her mother said. You would have to write it exactly that way. You could have also said, Maria's mom tells her popularity isn't important. Finding friends that like her for her is what matters most. There's lots of ways. Just make sure you have the same idea and make sure it's a complete sentence. I'm going to add a comma here. Before going to camp, Maria's mom tells her that what matters most is to find friends that like her for her. Make sure that you reread your answer to make sure, like I just did, that you didn't miss any kind of punctuation, that you spelled everything correctly, that you have capitals and periods. Check your work.
This video is all about making inferences. By the end of this video, you will be able to define the word inference, define textual evidence, read closely in a text to make inferences, and analyze an author's words to determine multiple pieces of textual evidence that support your inferences. So, you might be asking, what is an inference? The fact is, you make inferences every single day, usually without even realizing it. For example, if you sit down next to your best friend at lunch and she moves to another table, you might infer that she is angry at you, or that you smell funny. Or, if you get home from school and your dog jumps up and starts licking your face at the door, you can infer that he is happy to see you. Basically, an inference is an educated guess based on the evidence that is right in front of us, combined with our past experiences. Inferences are definitely required in everyday life, but they are also required when we are reading, watching movies, and even listening to music. In your notes, list 3 inferences that you can make from this picture. Good job! Good readers are constantly making inferences as they read literature or informational texts. This is because writers don't always tell us everything explicitly. They want us to think a little bit about what we are reading. For example, read the following paragraph with me as I read it aloud. Katie was excited about tonight. Happily, she put on her big red shoes and bright yellow outfit. Her mom helped Katie paint her face with a big red circle on each cheek. Just before Katie ran out the door to meet her friends, she attached her large squeaky nose and placed a bright blue pointy hat on top of her head. She grabbed an empty bag and went out into the night. Notice that this paragraph never tells us explicitly that Katie is going out trick-or-treating for Halloween, but we immediately make that inference because of the details that the author has provided. The author tells us that Katie's mom is helping her to paint her face white with big red circles. We know from personal experience, like seeing normal people in the real world, that this is not ordinary makeup. So we know that it must be a special occasion. But she's running out the door to meet her friends. So she doesn't seem to be in a play, because we know from experience that plays are usually performed indoors. But it's that last sentence that really helps us to make the inference. Katie grabbed an empty bag and went out into the night. Because most people have been trick-or-treating, or at least seen others do it on TV or in movies. We know from our experiences that this means it's Halloween. These details that lead us to that conclusion are what we call textual evidence. Textual evidence is specific information from a text that we use to support our inferences. Now that you understand how to make inferences and use textual evidence to support them.
Question 9. Maria is nervous about going to camp, but after she arrives at camp, she becomes more excited than nervous. What causes Maria's feelings to change? So that is your question right there. What causes Maria's feelings to change? That's what you're looking for. We know that in the last page is where it talked about her feeling excited. So perhaps you could go to the last page or maybe the last 2 pages and read what happens and see what made her feelings change from nervousness to excited. When you've underlined it and you've written it down in your answer, then you can push play and come back. Make sure that you use the question to write your answer. So in this case, you're going to say, Maria's feelings changed to excitement because, and then tell me why. Push pause, and I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, for this question, you're going to have to kind of make an inference. So you're going to have to take your own schema, your own experience, and clues from the story, and then kind of infer why you think her feelings changed. I went to the last paragraph of the second page, and it says, "Cool bracelet," said the skinny freckled redhead sitting next to her. "Thanks, I made it in an embroidery class I took this winter." "Whoa, that's impressive. Can you teach me how?" "If you teach me how to do a braid just like the one in your hair, I've mastered the art of French toast eating, but definitely not French braiding." So this is one of the events that happened that tell me that it looks like maybe she's starting to make friends, and that's what she was nervous about. So that could be one factor or one reason of why she's starting to feel excitement. And then look, later I see the 2 cabin counselors come out and they're giving a funny speech. They say dragonfly girls are as tough as dragons and as graceful as, well, dragonflies. "That sounded better when we rehearsed it," Gina said lightheartedly. So remember we said lightheartedly is like when you're joking around. So their cabin counselors seem to kind of be funny and excited. You know, I see exclamation mark. "And you ladies are the dragonflies." And so that probably also made her feel at ease and not as nervous, because I know when I go to a situation and maybe I don't know anybody or it's a new situation, if somebody comes out and they're full of excitement and they start being silly and goofy, it totally takes the nervousness away and kind of helps you to relax a little bit and kind of enjoy yourself. So I would think those are the 2 things that probably helped her go from nervousness to excitement. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. And I'm going to make sure to put it in my own words. Okay, I put it into my own words. Let's read the question and then the answer. Maria is nervous about going to camp, but after she arrives at camp, she becomes more excited than nervous. What causes Maria's feelings to change? Maria's feelings change to excitement because in paragraphs 20 to 23, it seems that she started to make a new friend, and later, when the cabin counselors come out, they are full of excitement and are joking around. I know that when I am in a new situation and feeling nervous, if I make a friend and people are joking around, it takes some of my nervousness away and helps me to enjoy myself. So I think this is why Maria's feelings changed to excitement. Remember, I said this is one where you kind of have to make an inference. So it's important to know that this part right here, you can do that, but you have to have evidence. So my evidence is this part right here, where I talk about her making a new friend and the cabin counselors being excited and joking around. So it's important, you have to have evidence. You can't just make a decision or a conclusion without evidence from the text first. Okay, question 10. Based on the information in the story, will Maria likely have a good time at camp? Support your answer using details from the text. This is another one where you're going to make an inference. It doesn't tell you that she's going to have a good time or not going to have a good time. You are going to need to take details from the text, your own schema, and make an inference. Go ahead and underline your text details and write down your answer, and when you're finished, push play. Question 10, based on the information in the story, will Maria likely have a good time at camp? A lot of this information that we already underlined for question 9 helps us to answer question 10. Again, she met a friend, the cabin counselors seem upbeat and funny. So to write my answer, I said, based on the information in the story, remember I got that directly from the question, I think Maria will probably have a good time at camp. Maria, and instead of saying likely, I said probably have a good time at camp. So let's read that sentence again. Based on the information in the story, I think Maria will probably have a good time at camp. So that answered the question, but this is the important part where students get marked down. You have to support your answer using details from the story. So the next part, these are my details. In the beginning, she was nervous. Here's a detail, but she has already started to make friends with one of her cabin mates. I saw that up here. At the end of the story, it tells us that Maria's stomach has butterflies, the excited kind. So I got that from the last paragraph. Since the phrase, the excited kind, was directly from the story, I had to put quotation marks around it. Let's read that sentence again. At the end of the story, it tells us that Maria's stomach has butterflies, the excited kind, which tells me she's probably going to have fun. So remember, this was another inference where it doesn't tell you exactly that she's going to have fun. You have to come to that conclusion using your own schema and the details from the text. If you have the excited kind of butterflies in your stomach, then you know when you feel excited, usually you're probably gonna have fun, right? Okay, that was the last page, and we're all finished. I hope that I see you next Friday, June 5th at 10 a.m. to pick up your work and anything you left in the classroom, and I would love to just see your face. I will be there. Bye for now.